Hello, and welcome back to the next episode of The Inner Estate with your host, Bridget Stuart. I am here today with special guest, Brian Curtis. Brian, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bridget. Really appreciate it.
So, I have to tell you, we are going to jump in on a topic that I think is so impactful and so intriguing. I'm so excited that we're going to talk about EQ. I find it fascinating, and I think that it's something that, whether you're in leadership or management or sales, it's something that can impact you not only at work, but even in your regular life. So I want to jump straight in. Brian, can you share with everyone why is EQ important to you and how do you think it's impactful? Tell us what EQ
Yeah,
means to you.
absolutely. So I'm just going to define it real quick. EQ stands for emotional quotient, just like IQ
Yes.
stands for intelligence quotient. I just want to point that out because I said this to somebody the other day about EQ, and they looked at me with that look in their face, like I don't know. And here's the thing: we all learn things at different times in our lives, so I'm not here to
Right.
judge that. And so I just wanted to be clear: we're talking about emotional quotient. And the thing that really intrigued me about this when I started studying it was I'm going to use a contrast frame here. Intelligent quotient. Once you get above basic intellect, in other words, if you got a 50 IQ, none of this applies because you got dealt a bad deal. I don't know what else to say it like that. But
Right.
your average human being who's got an average IQ up to genius, what they figured out is average IQ up to genius, even a little bit below, has zero. And I think that's the important thing, zero effect on your success. So in other words, if you have a 10 IQ, obviously you're going to struggle. If you have a 200 IQ, then theoretically you should be extremely successful, right? That was kind of what I thought. And what I found out is that's not true. The guy with a 100
Right.
IQ was doing better, if not, good as not better with the guy with a 200 IQ. Not a lot of people with 200 IQs, but conceptually, I think it's really important to understand that, okay, so I got IQ, I can go make myself smarter, I guess. I'm not 100% sure how to do that, but let's just assume we can. And it's going to affect me in a positive way, not at all. So that didn't feel like a good time, good way to spend my energy. You told me EQ has a direct relationship to my success. All of a sudden, I got real interested.
One of the things that is tied to it as well, correct me if I'm wrong, is happiness. So there's an impact of EQ on just your general baseline of happiness or enjoyment of life. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and I'll go a little bit deeper on that. Happiness for sure. And, I'm going to just take a second and compare what I'm going to call negative emotions. Some people are like, no emotion is negative. Okay, great. I'm just going to call them maybe emotions we don't want to have. How about that?
Okay, that sounds good.
Generally speaking, in my school, we call those anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, shame, and anxiety. I think most of the people watching this probably go, yeah, I don't want any of that stuff. Now, reality is we're going to have some at some point in our life. We're human beings. That's how we're designed. So, flip side, your more positive emotions, your happiness, your joy, your excitement, all those things, those are amazing things that we want to have on a daily basis. And here's what we found out: the more we got rid of our negative emotions, the more by default we end up in our positive emotions. And yes, there's literally a direct correlation between negative emotions and your EQ. So, in other words, when you are, and we've all done it, right? I'd like to tell you, I've never done this, but the reality is, all of us have had that day where we're angry, sad, fearful, whatever that emotion was that wasn't serving us. And we tried to go out and be really successful, and it was twice as hard. I'm not saying we can't push through it, but at the end of the day, it was like, I feel like I did twice as much work and accomplished half of the things. Well, when you're living in your negative emotions and your EQ is lower, and it actually does, it changes day to day, moment to moment, even if it's lower than you, it's going to be harder.
Yes, it is. It's going to be harder. And when you mentioned that with IQ, could you go and make yourself smarter? There are some studies that suggest possibly you can, especially if you lead in where you're strong, repetition drills, all of that.
Yeah, I
Will it be
believe.
significant? I don't know. Can you develop specializations? Absolutely. Right. So there's definitely things you could do there.
Sure.
What I guess my question for you is if someone feels as if they have a low or average EQ right now, are there things they can do to make it better?
Yes. Now, I'm going to throw this out there with a little bit of a caveat. This is directly what I do. So, yes. And so it's kind of, it almost feels a little weighted what I'm about to say, but I promise this is what I know. The idea is we have to release our negative emotions. And what's that about? So there's different ways to do this. I'm going to talk about some ways that I don't use simply because I just want to point those out. And then I'll come back to what I actually personally use for myself and what I use
That'd
with
be
my.
great.
So things like somatic body release, like there's energy that people are doing with that. My wife actually does what's called tuning fork tuning. So she
Hmm.
uses tuning forks to help tune people's biofield, and that actually gets rid of some of your negative emotions and limiting beliefs. So those are just a couple of examples. There's a technique called the Sedona method that I used long ago, and it has a little bit of value from the perspective. I don't think it gets deep enough, and so that's why I stopped using it. But for
Okay.
months it works really good on top, and you can look at there's an entire course. A guy named Hal Dosquin made that real popular, and it's a great course, and I used it for years. I think it's valuable. Nowadays, master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming, and in my school we use a thing called MER. MER stands for
Yes.
mental and emotional release. So MER to me is it's kind of the gold standard for getting rid of negative emotions and limiting beliefs. So, if I have a fear, I walk in here and let's face it, the way that we use this in our school is almost imagine like you have a black bag over your head that you can kind of see through. That's how the majority of us live our daily life. And what happens is we overreact to things because we're dealing with, we use this term baggage. So I'm going to see how well I can do this with an example here. So bear with me. So
Okay.
I like this as an example here. Like, okay, this is a negative emotion. Okay, this is my
Okay.
favorite is that is your significant other left their sock in the middle of the floor, and now you're walking over the middle of the floor and you're pissed off and you're yelling and screaming, and really all you had to do was go like this. Now, I'm not saying
Right.
it's an extremely pleasant experience, but at the end of the day, a sock on the floor does not probably warrant yelling and screaming and acting like a lunatic, right? I think most people
Agreed.
agree to that. So
Right.
that's this. So what the heck is going on? Like, this is no big deal. Well, the idea is these are all your other negative emotions that you've had, and they're kind of combining, and this is what you're reacting to, not this. Our idea is let's get rid of this so you have an appropriate reaction. Now, I'm not saying it's inappropriate to say, honey, I've asked you 17 times to pick up your socks. I may lose my crap if you do it again. One of those
Right.
things again. It's okay to say that, but again, I don't want to be losing my mind because you think about that from a leadership perspective. I'm going to go out on the limb and say there's going to be somebody today in your organization who's going to do something that's not going to make you thrilled. We'll just call
Yes.
it. And anybody's got an organization of more than two people, that's going to happen. I
That
mean,
it's going
so
to happen. It is going to
yeah.
happen. That's right.
And the key is, how am I going to react to that? Am I going to react with my baggage? Am I going to bring all of this to the party? Or am I going to say, you know what? It's just this one little thing and I want to deal with it appropriately. So that's really the question. And you could tell. I mean, I like everyone to think about it this way. Think about the last time you were unbelievably angry. And now go make a good decision. It's probably not going to
Yes.
happen. And most people get that, but what they don't get is this low grade anger that they're walking around with all the time, low grade fear they're walking, whatever that happens to be. They're like, well, that doesn't affect me. Well, yeah, it does. It may not affect you as much as a screaming, yelling lunatic person, but it's still having an effect and it's still keeping you from being the best version of you.
I agree. And it is impacting how you see everything. So joys will be lesser, laughter will be shorter. So any of the emotions, it's going to have an impact on
Yes.
whether you realize it or not.
Well, yeah, if you think about it from this perspective, and everyone watching this can understand this, try and be happy and sad simultaneously.
Right.
It don't work.
You
So
can't do it.
you're going to pick one or someplace on a spectrum, right? And so obviously, I think people like you and I, we try to lean more towards the happiness side of the spectrum versus sadness. And again, doesn't mean I'm not sad ever. I am,
That's right.
someone
Yeah, because
passes, I'm going to be
we're
sad.
humans, not robots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question for you around this. What if someone has been hanging on to one incident, right? So something traumatic that happened, say, 5 years ago, and they just have not let go of it to the point when you mentioned the sock on the floor, it made me think of this particular person. This is a real example. And so now they're living life in 2025. Actually, it was longer than 5 years ago because it was before the COVID extravaganza. And what's happening is when the sock's on the floor, not only are they annoyed, they start bringing back up the one incident from more than 6 years ago.
Mhm.
And it's devastating. It's like devastation level each time.
Yes.
Is MER, are the techniques that you use, would they be able to address something like that?
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting because there are, if you let's talk about a phobia, because I know that's not what you're talking about, but let's go to the extreme. Let's talk about literally a phobia. Someone who's scared of the weather. Someone who's scared of the weather. Yeah, I got struck by lightning. I never go outside when it's raining. I'm
Right.
scared of the weather. That's a pretty extreme experience, and if you live in Seattle, it's really going to make your life pretty miserable.
Yes.
Just kind of exaggerating there. Most If you go to most therapists, and by the way, I'm very pro therapy, so I'm not here to dog
Mm.
on therapy or any other modality that anyone is using, whether I agree or disagree with it. If it's working for you, do your thing.
Do it. Yes. I'm same belief.
And most therapists will tell you it's going to take you 10 to 15 years to get rid of a phobia. I can take you through a process where you can get rid of it in 15 minutes.
Hmm.
And if you think about this, from most people, I wish, when I'm in a group of, so let's say 300 people standing on a stage, I'll ask, I'm like, who once held on to something that was very, very, very negative to them and then just woke up one day and it was gone? And there are people, and then you find out there are some people who take 20, 30, 40 years. They'll hold on to something and literally wake up one day and it's gone.
And it's gone.
Yeah, MER does that. It's just we're doing it on purpose. We're not waiting the 30, 40 years to go through the process. Conscious mind knows how to do this. So I think it's kind of an important concept when you talk about this one individual to bring up what the unconscious mind is versus some of the what we call prime directives of the unconscious mind. And so your unconscious mind has a tendency, kind of knocks on the door. Hey, I'm here. And then sometimes it knocks on the door a lot louder. Sometimes it kicks in the door. Eventually, it's going to say to you, we're done with this. And it keeps coming up and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the concept is, you didn't hear me now, I'm going to yell. If you didn't hear me now, I'm going to scream. And eventually your unconscious mind is going to make you aware of it. And you're either just going to get really, really, really miserable, or you're going to deal with it. And that's what happens so often, is people just wait until the pain is so much that they can't deal with it
Right.
any way.
The,
And
yeah.
MER, any sort of release work, says, hey, you know what? Why don't we just clear it up? We know it's there. We know every single person on the planet has had some negative emotions. They've had some limiting beliefs. Why don't we just clear it up now and do it intentionally? And the other key to it is, believe it or not, there might be some secondary gain going on for that person. I don't know who you're talking about, don't want to. But, secondary gain is basically, I use it this way. My brother-in-law is a physician's assistant for a back doctor. And
Okay.
so he literally does back surgery. He's not the doctor, he's the physician's assistant. And so he deals with a lot of the patients, because the doctor's like, I'm just going to do the surgery, you deal with the patients. So he has to deal with
Right. Right.
all the garbage, right? And he sits in front of people all day long who have secondary gain. What's that? Well, I don't really know. I'm a little scared to have my back surgery done. Well, why? Well, and they don't really tell you. Well, the truth is, it's because they get a check from the government for $3,000 every month. And as soon as they get their back fixed, they're going to lose that. It's a secondary gain. So all too
Yes.
often, there's something else going on in the background. It's like, for example, again, I don't know your person, but I'm just going to make something up as a possibility. Maybe by telling this story, they get the attention that they want in their lives, and it makes them feel important. Maybe it's the one place where someone's going to listen to them. And again, I have no idea. I'm just making this
Right.
up. The kind of
Right.
discovery I would do is just kind of talk that person through it. But here's the one thing I think is the most powerful part of NLP, in my opinion. We don't believe in content. We believe in context, structure, and process. What does that mean? That means you can go tell your story all you want. Matter of fact, tell it all you want. And now we're just going to stop telling that story. It's not the story that happened to you. And by the way, I think this is going to be something that makes people's head hurt. You don't remember it correctly anyway.
Agreed. Yes. Yes.
This literally changed my life when I realized this, because I would go around sometimes and get so frustrated because I'm going to use air quotes, knew I was right about something. And then when I learned this concept, it allowed me to realize I may never be right, and that's okay. And what it was is this. So let's say you have a memory from something that happened when you were 10 years old. Great, awesome memory. Let's use a good memory. I had a good memory of it. And then you remembered it when you were 11 and 12 and 13, 14 and 15 and 16. Most people think we're going all the way back to the original memory. We're not. We're going back to the last time we remembered it. I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to distort stuff over time. And before I know it, this memory of me as a 10-year-old may not have even happened. I mean, that's extreme. It's probably not going that far. But here's the thing. When you keep telling your story over and over again, why this is horrible, you're just going to get more of it. And you get more of it.
That's right.
You get more of it. And here's the thing. You want to hold on to it? Great. And I tell clients that too. Like, Well, this is important. If you want to keep holding on to it, then you can, and you're going to keep getting the results you want. You want to try something different. And, it's sometimes hard to forgive somebody. I was working with a gentleman and he said this to me. He goes, I'm not going to forgive that guy. As a matter of fact, if I saw him, I would walk across the street and kill him. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty extreme.
Wow. Yeah.
And we worked, and he doesn't feel that way anymore, by the way. So,
Right.
we took
Good.
him through a process to get rid of that. And it wasn't serving him. One of my favorite sayings when you talk about dealing with other people is that when I hold this resentment, this anger, this frustration, it's like drinking poison and expecting you to die.
Correct.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. No. And I think that's interesting. You brought up the that secondary benefit. And in that situation, I can see where that was happening because you're right, you'll get attention, or it's like the ultimate linchpin to get back in that dynamic, and to like get what they want. I don't think their conscious mind is thinking about that, but there has to be a reason why. And that's one example, but all of us have something we hang on to that we may believe is either protecting us or giving us comfort or making us right, all these things. And in reality, if we really stopped and evaluated it, it may be holding us back.
Yes. And here's the other thing. Things serve us for a period of time. My favorite story to tell about that, this is a limiting belief. This limiting belief is that it's not good to talk to strangers, right? Like I've told my 2-year, 3-year, 4-year-olds when they were that age, don't talk to strangers,
That's right.
What do you and I do for a living? We talk to strangers.
We talk to strangers all the time.
And, so it was a great belief when I was 4. When I'm 44, not so much. And, it's really interesting. The majority of our beliefs are set between the ages of 0 and 7. And so we come in 95% cooked, for lack of a better way to put it, by the time we're 7. And then we have a problem when we're 37. We go, I don't understand. Well, you're still using all the programming from when you were 7. Right. Unless something else happened. Now, again, a lot of people go and they do work on themselves and they learn and they grow and they make changes, but a lot of people don't. I mean, I can tell you that I don't think I ever, first 25, 26 years of, maybe even 30 years of my life did any self-help. So, and, again, self-help's not the only solution, but at the end of the day, you're not going to change unless you take some sort of process to change. Otherwise, you're just going to stay the same.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, because you probably know the statistic, but the vast majority, over 90% of our day are repetitive thoughts, actions, thoughts and actions. Like we are, the creature of habit is a phrase for a reason. And we like to think that we're free and creative and, we choose our own life, but really our days are dictated by our subconscious mind and the habits we've created, and we continue to choose.
It's interesting. Some people will probably scoff at what I'm about to say. They won't believe it, or they'll go, nah, that's not me. Take it for what it's worth. Most of us are addicted to feeling the way we're feeling no matter what it is. So in other words, if you get up every day and you feel glum and you go, man, I really want to be happy. Yeah, consciously, of course you want to be happy, but your unconscious mind says, look, we're comfortable here in this glum life. We don't want to change, because most people equate change and pain. So literally you get addicted to being less than optimal, less than happy, less than whatever, fill in the blank. And you're comfortable with that. The mind's purpose is to protect you. It's not to help you expand and grow and get better. It's literally to protect you. And it goes, you know what? Yes, we're miserable, but this is a misery I understand and I know how to deal with it. And you would think that wouldn't make any sense, but that's how our programming works, whether we want it to or not.
Right. Do you think that is one of the reasons why, especially, we'll go extreme again, overcoming an actual addiction is so difficult? Or do you think that's a different dynamic?
There's a lot going on with actual addictions, because you have, you have physical addictions, you have emotional addictions, you have mental addictions. I do quit smoking with people. I help people through hypnosis to quit smoking. Here's an interesting fact. Most people are not addicted to nicotine who smoke. They're addicted to sugar.
Tell me more. I do not know anything about this. Tell me more.
There's more sugar in cigarettes than there used to be. And if you think about vapes, and I don't vape or anything like that, I don't vape nicotine or anything like that. But if you think about, like in Colorado where I live, they banned certain like flavored vapes because they had so much sugar in them that these kids were literally getting addicted to the sugar in it. Sugar is far more addictive than nicotine. As a matter of fact, nicotine is out of your system in 72 hours. Interesting thing happened with the lawsuit. I don't remember what year it was, but say 20 years ago. They sell more cigarettes now because they lost the lawsuit. Because they had to go on television, create ads, and tell you that you were addicted to nicotine. Every person who didn't know they were addicted to nicotine now knows they're addicted to nicotine, whether they are or not. And I can't quit. I'm addicted. So addiction is a
Oh
very
my goodness.
interesting animal, and there's so many things going on with it out there. So yes, there's
So
physical addiction.
it might be a part of it.
It definitely is like it's a feeling. It doesn't feel comfortable. But, here's the comparison. If you're a smoker, do you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and feel like you're going to die if you don't smoke a cigarette? I'm going to say no. I'm not a smoker. But I'm going to guess, unless you're smoking 12 packs of cigarettes a day, that you're not waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning needing a cigarette or going to feel like you die. Also, not a heroin addict, but I've heard that people who use things like heroin and crack and these different, really hardcore drugs literally wake up in the middle of the night because they feel like they're going to die if they don't take a hit. That's addiction.
Wow. Okay.
Or I have a friend who was an alcoholic to the point where they kicked him out of rehab, not because he wasn't willing to do the work, because they said, if you quit drinking cold turkey, you're going to die.
That's right. Yes. I've heard of that.
So that's addiction.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I'm going to call it extreme discomfort. It's not, addiction to me, the physical addiction is that if my body doesn't have this, it goes just. I heard Tony Robbins say this one time. He goes, you know what? Nobody has an aspirin deficiency. That is not the problem. You're fixing the result, not the problem. So
Right.
yeah, addiction is definitely, it's just slightly more complex, I guess, to answer your question. I'm not sure I did, but yeah, it's pretty complex.
Well, so let's just say someone is intrigued by our conversation and they're intrigued by MER and some of the things you've mentioned, and they're intrigued yet either skeptical or uncertain. What would you recommend as a first step if they wanted to learn more about this?
Yeah, there's a great book. So the history of MER, I don't know if you know it or not, but MER was created by a guy named Tad James. He called it timeline therapy. And the short version of the story is that Tad was at an event where Richard Bandler, who the guy who invented NLP, was doing, and he was out in a hallway with a woman, and they were dealing with a concept called perceptual positions. And as they were going through that concept, he realized that I don't remember what the emotion was, doesn't really matter, but that all of a sudden she was no longer feeling, we'll call it fear. She was no longer feeling this fear. And so then they went and did the research and figured that out. So there's a whole bunch of reasons that I'm talking about MER versus timeline therapy, not really for this podcast, but short version of it is Matt James, who is Tad James' son, wrote the book called MER, Mental and Emotional Release. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it. There's all kinds of places. You can reach out to me. I'll give you a free copy. I know Matt. I worked with him for years. Great guy. And, he's about saving the world. It's funny. I talked to his wife. She's like, we need to make more money and stop saving the world. I'm just kidding. But, there's that line between what are you going to give away and help people. You got to stay.
But he's so passionate about it and he wants to share it.
Right. Absolutely. So MER is great book. And, there's a study in that book that literally talks about the Heads Up Clinic. The Heads Up Clinic is a clinic in Las Vegas ran by a guy named Dr. Patrick Scott.
Okay.
And they run about 25,000. They have about 25,000 clients. So it's not a small clinic. They've got a good database. And I don't remember the exact numbers of people that were in the study, but basically they took a control group and then they had an experimental group. They did it, in the scientific method. The control group did what's called CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is basically talk therapy. I mean, there's a little bit more to it, but basically I'm going to talk to you and you're going to get better. That was the control group. The other group did CBT, but they also did MER, mental and emotional release, and the numbers are insane. Let's say at least 2010 or later. Zero recidivism. What does that mean? Well, every single person in the study was diagnosed as clinically depressed. I don't know if you've ever met anyone who's clinically depressed, but it's a real thing. It's not, I feel a little bit gloom today. It's like I don't want to get out of bed and I don't want to think about getting out of bed. I mean, it's bad. They had zero recidivism, which basically means not a single person who went through that came back and said, I'm having problems again. That is zero is a big number. I know it sounds like funny to say that, but zero is a big number.
It is a big number. And it's something that I think is so compelling for our society today. I mean, I just know that you stay on top of this. There's so many issues with loneliness epidemic, especially with men, but now it looks like women are catching up in the loneliness epidemic. Who knew?
Yeah.
Think
Well,
for a minute. That might make sense.
yeah, do the math, right?
Yeah, do the math there. And there is just record numbers. I heard a stat just the end of last week that 1 out of every 4 people are on some type of antidepressant or mood stabilizer. So that means literally you're walking through the grocery store. 1 out of every 3 people you pass, if you're not the one that's on it, they're on it. So when I think about that, I mentioned that not to be doom and gloom, but I can understand Matt's passion because these are things that could make a difference.
They are. Absolutely. And it's interesting, you talk about the medication stuff, and I'm not trying to dog on medication.
I'm not either. What if?
Full disclosure, I got divorced many, many, many years ago. I'm very happily married today. I got divorced. My wife might watch this. But, I got divorced, and it was a bad divorce, and they put me on an antidepressant. But here's
Yeah.
what the doctor who put me on the antidepressant said, and I don't know that I hear this when I talk to people on antidepressants. I'm going to put you on this antidepressant for somewhere between 6 months and a year. The whole purpose of it is to reset your system and help you help yourself. It's not so that you now, I'll use Paxil. That was one that was a big, you don't have
Right.
a Paxil deficiency. That's not
Correct.
the problem.
Right.
You have a blood chemistry issue potentially. And again, not a doctor, but but your body theoretically, very, very small percentage of people ever needs to be on antidepressants for the rest of your life. But we've kind of become a take a pill society. Well, I'll just take
Yes.
a pill every day, and that's great. Am I going to guarantee that No, I won't, because I don't like guarantees. And here's the
Right.
reality: if you're unwilling to do the release work, it won't release. No matter how good I am, if you don't want to do it, if you're not, your unconscious mind says no, we won't do it. So that's a part of it. But at the end of the day, I don't really know anyone who's gone through MER and focused, and really done it right and really paid attention and did their part. That's clinically depressed. That is needs to take antidepressants. And there probably are some people. I mean, I just the fact that I don't know them doesn't mean they don't exist. So what's the point? What are you trying to accomplish? And for me, I want to live kind of drug free. I don't want
Me
that. I
too.
mean, I can tell you right now that stuff numbs you out and it's not fun and you don't feel
Right.
your
Right.
emotions anymore. And it's not my jam for sure.
Yeah, it's not my jam either. My jam would be how do we get more of this information out for people? And then, like you were saying, have people have the EQ to know, wait, there's something else out there. And I'm going to lean into it, trust it, and see if it will work for me. Like
Yeah.
I
I mean,
also feel somewhat passionate about it. And sometimes, frankly, I don't really know what to do to now clearly as a coach and working with a lot of clients. I don't have all of the training and education that you do specifically in MER. However, I've got colleagues like you and a few other people, and I'm able to refer people to them. And I've seen the incredible benefit of it. So it is, I do think about that sometimes. I will tell you, can I tell you a secret?
I like secrets.
Things I think about at random times. How could I get more people to know about mega dosing on vitamin D3 and getting more sun and K2? B, how could I get, yep, mine is right over there. Yeah. How can I get more people to lean into, not everyone, but for people that it does work with, checking out an animal-based diet and 10 minutes of sunshine a day. Now also taking it higher level, MER, and particularly for me, I think about that incredible impact on your daily baseline of enjoyment of life,
Yeah.
which is automatically, it's going to change your entire relationships, your home, your children, your work, like everything benefits.
Yeah. I mean, think of the name of it: mental. So everything you
Yeah.
think, emotional, everything you feel. So it's just that. That's the only thing it affects is everything you think and feel.
I have
So
another question for you. So
please.
let's say that someone's doing pretty well and they're pretty successful and they have a great mindset routine and they, have trained themselves for their first thought of the day every day. And they don't necessarily sit here and say, like, hey, Brian, I feel fill in the blank. I'm struggling with this fear or phobia, this trauma, this story. What if someone doesn't have that? Is MER still something that somebody would do? Is there a benefit if someone feels sort of like their baseline is pretty good? Like,
Yeah,
tell me more about that.
I'll use the onion analogy because everyone kind of understands that. Like, there's layers of an
Making
onion.
me think of Shrek.
That's right. Okay.
I am a movie and music. Two favorite things.
Big.
Continue.
I love rumors.
Oh,
That's
very
what it
good.
is, isn't it? I think it is.
Yes, it is.
Well.
Yep. Yeah.
So I was working with a client today. We're doing a thing called a breakthrough session. A breakthrough session is basically MER, but the front end of it is you're going to, it's very scientific. We're going to dig up all your crap. We're going to look for your
Okay.
negatives and your limiting beliefs. Why? Because all that stuff is unconscious. And that's why I'm bringing up that point. I don't know a lot of people who walk around with a t-shirt that says, hey, here's a list of my limiting beliefs. Or if I bet you I've asked this question to somebody at least 10 times, 10 different people who have answered this way. Do you have any limiting beliefs? Nope. Well, there's your first one. So, I mean, the reality is, whether we like it or not, we are bombarded with information constantly. You know, I said this to somebody the other day and it just blew their mind. I was watching the Olympics in 2022 or 2020. I can't remember which one because it's the pandemic and that's all just kind of,
Right.
I can
Right.
imagine. So one of the things was they were having sponsors of different events. And this is what the tagline said. This event brought to you by Toyota. I'm going to guess that if I ask 100 people the significance of what I just said, 99 of them will go, I don't know. Well, buy is spelled B-Y, but what you hear is buy a Toyota.
Yes.
This ad sponsored by Toyota. They literally just said buy Toyota. Now, your conscious mind went, oh yeah, Toyota sponsor. Your unconscious mind said, hey, I think I should buy a Toyota.
Buy a Toyota. Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying that every single person who saw that ad ran out and bought a Toyota. That's not the point. But if you don't think you're being programmed, then I'm 100% sure you are. Because,
Correct.
you know,
Yes.
there's a reason that I stopped watching the news and all these different
Me
things.
too.
And I can't take in all that stuff. It's hard enough to fight everything that's going on without adding the extra content. So, yes, I think we need to really pay attention to that. And here's the thing. Does everybody on the planet need a breakthrough session? Probably not. There's probably some people who are doing really, really, really good. And I would ask somebody if they wanted to know more, is your motivation towards or away? And here's why. So many people are extremely successful with away motivation. The problem with it is it has a tendency to make you miserable and make you sick. So I was working with a gentleman one time and he said this to me. He goes, you know, Brian, everything in my life that I do is in business is to prove somebody that I'm good enough. It's like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Dude's killing it, by the way, like on paper. Like everyone's going, yeah, I'd love to be like that. I'd love to be like that guy. And, oh yeah, well, by the way, his personal life was just an absolute train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
Week later, he calls me and says that his fiance, he had to fire her because she was literally stealing money out of their joint account. I mean, it's all this stuff. And so my point is this, if we go do everything to move away from something, very motivational. In other words, hey, if you don't go out and do this today, you're going to lose your house. I'm going to go out and do it.
Right.
That's away motivation. And the problem with it is it kind of stops when the pressure goes away. So, you know, I'll be using an extreme example. If I hold a gun to your head and tell you to lead generate, you're like, yeah, you're going to pick up the phone. The second I take the
That's
gun
right.
away, you're going to be like, I'm done with that because you no
Yeah.
longer have that negative motivation. We want to go towards something. We want to say, hey, I want to close 50 transactions this year. What do I do? Well, if we break it down, one of the things I got to do is lead generate. All of a sudden, it's not that hard because I have some reason to do it. Most people do lead generation because they have to or they're forced to. There's no push forward. It's all about just having somebody, you know, just, ugh. And to me, and I've lived there, so I know exactly what I'm talking about personally.
Me too.
And it's just a better way to live. So, you know, ask yourself, are you motivated by your negative emotions? Are you motivated by move aways? The other thing I would ask somebody who is doing that is there anything in life that you really, really want that you're not being able to get? I can't get this and this and this. Well, how come? And then we would dig in there and say, okay, well, looks like because when you were a kid, you learned to, we talked about this before, you learned not to talk to strangers. That's why you're not willing to do, you know. generation because you're scared to death to get on the phone. And I would also say that all of us have some stuff that we're not out there publicly talking about. Like, I
Right.
didn't come on here and say, "Hey, I'm gonna tell you everything that's wrong in these 6 areas of my life today." And by the way, I'm doing just fine. But I think a lot of times people put on a facade because we're supposed to. And I'm sure there's a person out there who does not need to release their negative emotions and limiting beliefs, but I just haven't met them yet.
So could you share with me, because the reason I ask that is our company, Coaching Nexus, coaches, you and I, the clients we attract, as you said, most of them are growing, they're growth oriented, they're looking to improve, very action oriented, making things happen. And I was wondering, they may hear what we're talking about and think that it couldn't benefit them.
Okay.
And maybe it could. Like it
Yeah.
really, it,
Yeah.
it
I
could.
want to answer that if you're okay. So
Yeah.
in my school, we believe there's 4 things that you have to do to change. And when you do that, you just look at those 4 things. So the first one is get rid of your baggage. Get rid of your negative emotions and limiting beliefs. Well, how do you know if you have a negative emotion or limiting belief? Well, if I said to you, I don't want to use politics. If I said to you, I don't know, something, and all of a sudden you're like really kind of fired up about it, that's baggage. Assuming it's negative, not positive. If it's positive, great, get fired up about it. But I'll use it. This is a good way to do this. I can go in a room and I can say Donald Trump's the greatest president in the United States. That will cause some baggage in some people. I can go in another room and I could say Joe Biden was the greatest president in the United States, and that will cause baggage to come up.
Right.
If either of those statements makes you feel like a little uneasy, if you feel uncomfortable about that, that's baggage.
Yes. Okay.
Like, here's the thing. Like, there's nothing I'm going to do. I'm not going to tell you which person I like or dislike, or truth,
Right.
I'm not a big fan of either, but it's another story. It doesn't really matter. All we're doing is saying do that. And I had to work through this. Like, I had some baggage with that stuff, and I really had to realize that I was wasting my energy focusing on something I had absolutely no control over. So there's another good example to you. Like, why am I focusing? We'll just say, why am I focusing on the president? Let's just pick that because it's an easy thing out there. Why am I focusing on this? How is that changing my life at all? I see some of my friends on Facebook
That's right. Yeah.
every single day, and I'm like, if
Yeah.
you just spend just that 30 minutes doing something positive, your life would be better.
Right.
And if that's what you love, do your thing. I just have never found that to be something that caused my life to become more enriched. It's,
Right.
yeah. So 4 requisites. First one, is there baggage? Great. If there's not, and that is possible, then have you created a goal? So the very first thing that I do after I do a breakthrough session with somebody is we do a goal, and we do it 3 different ways. We do avatar. This is who I'm going to be. We'll call it 10 years from now. We have an aim, and an aim is very specific in each area of life. An aim is going to be about what am I going to do to get to my end? And the end goal is what normally we would call a traditional SMART goal. So I'm going to set those 3 goals. And this is going to sound funny. Some people this is going to cause people not to want to work with me, but some people will understand the value, and that's who I want anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It takes about 6 weeks to complete that process.
Okay.
To go from breakthrough session to I have my goal. We do a thing where we put it in the future because your unconscious mind does not know the difference between something highly visualized and
That's
something
right.
that actually happened.
Yes.
So we take a process where we put your goal in the future, and as far as your brain knows, you're like, yeah, it's going to happen. And so
Right.
it changes your behavior because all of a sudden you're pointed over here instead of pointed over here. So that's step 2. And here's the funny thing. After you do the work that I do for a while, you kind of hope it's baggage, because I can get rid of baggage in 10 minutes and the other steps take more time. takes 6 weeks for a lot of people to get through their whole goal setting process. But after we do that, then we create an action plan. In other words, I'm going to go through together. We're going to say, hey, we want to close 50 deals. These are the things that we're going to do over the next 12 months. And then obviously we get feedback from that action plan because we go, hey, this is working great. And then the last thing we do is we focus on the positive outcome. We look at it because too many people do this. Get up, work their butt off every day, and then get up the next morning and go, man, this is too hard. The real estate market sucks. The interest rates are too. Holy crap, you got to focus on the positive stuff.
The positives. Yeah, that's right.
Work is still going to be challenging no matter what, or otherwise, you would probably do it. It's still going to have some challenge. You don't have to add extra challenge by saying, this is really, really, really hard. Because if you wake up and say it's really, really, really hard, you're going to be right.
Correct. Yes, you will affirm that is what is true. And then your subconscious is going to seek evidence to support it.
Yeah.
Because we
Nice
do
part.
like to be right. We're driven to be right, right? So we'll.
Have a class that I teach, and it starts out just talking about the basic concepts of the unconscious mind, different things. But confirmation bias, you just kind of talked about, and
Mhm.
I had to sign up for this group so that I could get access to take a screenshot of their page. And I told my wife, she's like, quit that group. I'm like, okay. It's the flat earthers. There is a group that I joined for a short period of time. If you're a flat earther, I'm not even going to apologize. I don't know what's wrong.
I'm not either.
But there's 150,000 people in this group. So if you believe the earth is flat, there's 150,000 people who agree with you. No matter what you believe, someone will agree with it.
Right, that's right. And you will find them.
Yeah.
Your subconscious will,
It
all of
likes
a
to be
sudden, you're going to find them. You will attract them. Yes, it's amazing. This is so out of left field. If it's too far out of left field, let me know. Another issue that's facing our society, our culture, predominantly as far as I know here in America, I haven't looked outside of America, is this massive surge in familial estrangements, particularly with young adult children and their parents. And do you think that if either side, let's say a young adult who feels, you know, whomever is creating the estrangement. And by the way, I'm not talking about ones where there was violence or, so I'm just talking, it's happening regular. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think that MER would be helpful either with a parent or an adult child that is finding themselves choosing that path or falling into that path or however it's happened? Do you think MER might help?
Sure. And again, it depends on what the problem is. In other words,
Mhm.
I hate my mom and dad. Yeah, MER works great for that. There's also another thing I do. It's called Ho'oponopono, which is it's a Hawaiian forgiveness process. A lot of people are hearing about it now. Tony Robbins is teaching what's called the Ho'oponopono prayer. I actually go through the original process. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but that's what I use.
Okay.
So that is exceedingly powerful inside of family dynamics. MER is great. To me, I look at MER and Ho'oponopono as two separate tools. MER is for negative emotions, anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, anxiety, and then limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Those kind of things.
Right.
Fabulous to knock those things out. The energetic exchange between two people, and I'm going to call it an energetic exchange. I hope that's not to you. You said we were getting a little weird, so I'm going to go weirder. The energetic.
I fully believe in that. Yeah.
Good, we can hang out then. What we're looking to do is reset it. And I'll tell a pretty extreme story. There's a woman, she actually is okay with her name being used, but I'm not going to use it. She was at a training that was being run by the company I got trained by. And she had been basically her first day she was in the military. So she literally didn't even know who did it. It was like a group of dudes went and did horrible things. And I'll just leave it at that. She came into the training and, just kind of looked like somebody who had spent the last 10 years of their life thinking about that. If that makes sense, just
right. Yes.
We've all seen these people who've like all the colors gone from their face.
Yes.
The clothes they wear is not because they have a style choice. It's just because they couldn't care less about anything, and they're just
anything. Yeah.
Whatever happened. Again, I'm not telling, but there's a difference between I don't give what I look like, and I don't really care about anything at all.
Anything.
In the second category, and she did Ho'oponopono. And again, now she didn't even know the person, literally doesn't even know the person who was. But when you disconnect that energy that comes with it, she literally the next day came in, hair done up, makeup on. And again, I'm not saying you have to have that to be good, but a person who feels really crappy about themselves is not going to make themselves look good. They're just
that's right.
Whatever. And so, yes, unbelievably powerful. If I had a client who's done this, and I've had lots, like kids and parents, I've worked with a lot of adult children, so like people in their 30s and 40s. And still have lots of baggage with their parents. Why wouldn't you? Our parents, they're there. They're there. There's a rumor that we pick our parents, and sometimes I wonder, did we pick the right people? Another story. But yeah, so this idea of resetting that energy, would MER help? Yes, for me. Now, I want to even go to the next level because this is, again, a little bit weird, but I do believe it firmly. The more you do your work, the more likely the other person is to come with you. And when I'm not saying that they're going to walk up to you and say, "What are you doing?" Because I'm just saying literally, I've seen this over and over again where person A did their work and all of a sudden their father is apologizing for them out of the blue. Like,
right. Yes.
I hadn't talked to the guy in a year and a half, and he calls me out of the blue and apologized for something he did 30 years ago that I did work on.
Right.
That shouldn't be possible, but I'm telling you, it happens.
It happens.
And
It
more
does.
importantly than that, though, is if I do my part, if I'm clear out my negative emotions, my limiting beliefs, keep my EQ up, was kind of where we started this, then I'm not saying I'm thrilled that my dad doesn't want to talk to me. My dad and I are fine, by the way. But I'm not saying I'm going to be thrilled about that, but I'm going to be okay with it.
That's
Versus
yes.
most people who have a kid or a parent that they're estranged from, anytime they even think about that, it's a miserable experience. And I've been estranged from people in my life who were important to me, and it's kind of like, man, I really hope they're doing well. I really love them, and I want to send that
Yes.
out to them. And someday they'll come back, and or we won't.
Or they won't. That's right. And that's the thing is then it's just a new stage where you're still living a full life.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
having high EQ, by the way. Being
So,
to be okay with what is, because here's the thing.
yes.
Full disclosure, yes, have I tried to change my children? Oh my God, I have. I won't do it anymore, but I have. It doesn't work at all. Have I tried to change my parents? Yeah, I tried that too. It's not going to work. So the only thing I can do is work with this. This is all I got. And so, you know, what is my reality? What is my perception of what's going on is far, far more important than what somebody else thinks or feels. One of my favorite sayings is your opinion of me is none of my business.
Yes, that's right. I love that one too. With EQ. So you shared a great book and resource with
Yes.
MER, if someone's curious about that. What would you recommend in terms of EQ? I have one in mind myself, but I would love to hear what yours would be.
Yes. And so it's funny. I'm sitting here and going, hey, I should have prepared for this question as I was the person who brought the topic. There's another great book and I'm running through my Audible. When I say I read, that's not really true. It's not that I never read, but I'm not nearly as
You
much
listen.
as I was. I listen, and
Yeah.
I believe in what Tony Robbins calls net time, no extra time.
Hmm.
And I think it's really a great concept. When I was a real estate agent, the last year that I was fully active, my car had a timer. I didn't realize it did. And I drove 649 hours in 1 year. And if you take
Wow.
649 hours and divide it by 40, which is the number of hours in a week, you get about 16 weeks at 40 hours a week I spent in the car. There's an opportunity to learn something there.
Brian, you gave a great resource with MER, if anyone's curious about that. So let's say someone is a little more curious about EQ. And I'm guarantee you there's people out there skeptical saying, oh, that's not a real thing. People don't really have that. That's a made up thing. No, it's not.
Sure.
Okay. They can believe that.
They can.
However, if we touched them so much that they want to learn more, do you have a book that you would recommend for them or a resource where they could learn more?
Yeah, Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is a great book. I don't remember who the author is off the top of my head. Let's see. I got it here in my Audible because I've listened to it recently. Travis Bradbury and Gene Graves.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, just a great book. It gets good baseline. It kind of explains some of the stuff we talked about. More focuses on the EQ than the release work that we talked about today, but a fabulous book.
I clearly, you and I could talk about this at length. First, I want to share you taught me something 100% I'd never knew.
Okay, cool.
I did not know there was sugar in cigarettes or vapes.
Yeah,
I love when I learn something new every day. I can go to bed now. So thank you for that.
you're welcome.
But even more meaningful is you've really even challenged me to think about are there what I'll call elite athletes that I'm coaching that could become Olympians if they went through MER. So one of my favorite sayings is don't let the best be the enemy of the good.
Mm.
And it makes me think, are we accepting good? Could it be better? Is there opportunity there if somebody went through MER where what they're achieving could just be even at a different level? So I want to thank you for sharing that.
Can I
It's
answer
not
that
just,
question?
yeah, you can, but it's like not just for the totally downtrodden, you know?
No, I
Yeah,
generally do not work, and I'm not against working with, but there's a reason I didn't become a therapist because to sit in a chair for 8 hours a day and listen to everybody tell me everything that's horrible, I just
right. Yeah,
would jump off a bridge. God
yeah,
bless the people who are capable of that. That is not in
agreed.
my skill set, in my
Right.
wheelhouse. The question I would ask is, do they have a limiting belief that's holding them
Mhm.
back? So, it's funny you talk about professional athletes. We had a lady who was part of our school who she's from Canada, hockey is what I'm going to talk about. She
Mhm.
literally went to one of the local, like, not the pro hockey team, but the next level down, like it's called the AHL. I don't know if you're familiar with hockey,
Right.
but she went to the coach and said, "Do you have a player or two on your team that used to be just killing it and is now just not doing it?" He's like, "Yeah." And she said, "For free, I will help them and get them back to where they can be at their peak performance. If I do that, will you help me work with the other people on your team, actually get paid?" And yeah, and there's a picture of her standing with these two guys to help. Absolutely. Because, basketball, I'm standing at the free throw line. If I go, I'm never going to make this shot. I mean, and I don't think it's probably that extreme, but there are times, I guarantee you, there are players that stand at that free throw line and go, there's no way I'm going to make this. Or, just
Yeah.
the runs the gamut. So yeah, if you have a belief that's not serving you and you'd like to have a different one, yeah, MER is great for getting rid of the negative one. Interestingly enough, I was talking to Matt about this and I said, "So do I got to put the new belief back in?" And he said, "Sometimes." And the question is, you just kind of test it. So after, if you had a belief that you said, "I'm not good enough," and after we went through that, I'd say, "Well, tell me about that. How do you feel about not good enough?" You're like, "Oh my God, I can't even believe I ever thought about that. I'm great." Okay, great. You clearly got it. Some people you have to say, like, "Yeah, I think I'm good enough." Okay, then you can literally install the belief. That's a different process. But yeah, anything that is affected by the mind, you can use NLP for, and specifically MERs for negative emotions and limiting beliefs.
Well, I think it's just fascinating. I am so glad that we're colleagues. So you and I are both coaches at the Coaching Nexus, and it's incredible to me that we have the depth of talent and the spectrum of talent in our group where I can now talk to some of my clients, and if they feel as if they would want to explore MER, I can connect you with them
Absolutely.
and you can work with them. So tell everyone, I think you said it once already, share one more time. If they want to reach out, what's the easiest way to get you? I will put all of your information in the description, but a lot of people are just listening.
Yeah, yourrealcoach.com
Okay.
is my Calendly link. And so
Okay.
literally anybody on the planet who has that link, you're welcome to click on it and schedule a 1 hour free consult. There's no sales pitch. You're either going to be interested and I'll know, then I'll ask you to work with me, or if I know you're not interested, I won't. That's about as high pressure as I get. I can be high pressure, but I don't need it. I believe in what I do, and since I do, I don't think we need to. 126coaching.com is my website, and anyone
Great.
can there as well. And you can find me on Facebook. I don't read Messenger every single day, but if you send me a message today, sometime in the next 48 hours, I'll see Messenger and I'm happy to respond.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any final thought
I
you
just
want to
want to say,
share?
I just really appreciate being around like-minded people. That's the other thing I'll say about coaching, and that's kind of my final thought, is I started being coached for the first time in 2006, and that was a different experience. But I'm talking about the first time that I was really in coaching, and it was in 2014, 2015, right around that time frame. What I found was I got to be around a group of people who were powerful and strong and moving in the right direction. The 5 people you spend the most time with, that's
That's right.
great. And so if you're considering coaching, I'm not talking about coaching with me, I'm saying considering coaching with somebody. Yes, you have a great one-on-one coach who's going to help you with all the things and they're going to do this, but honestly, some people get just as much. I don't think they ever get more, but I think they get just as much for being part of a community that's positive minded and moving forward. And you almost feel like you got to show up, right? At least I did. I felt like,
Yes.
man, I got to show up
Yeah.
because
Yeah, you do.
so,
You do.
I would say get in a room where you got to show up. If you're in a room where you walk in and everyone's telling you you're the greatest person in the room, okay, and that's nice, and you're still in the wrong room.
That's right. Well, thank you so much. I hope you'll be a guest again one day.
Absolutely.
And I am really thrilled with the insight you shared with me. I also feel like I have an even better understanding of what you do, in particular with MER with your clients. So thank you. And if you're listening, I hope you'll show up for the next episode of The Inner Estate. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.